In my 40 years working as a urologist, I've sat across from countless men and women in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, who leaned in slightly, lowered their voices, and asked the same timid question, is it still normal to have sexual desires at my age? Many of them looked ashamed, like they were confessing something they shouldn't feel anymore. I always look them in the eye and say the same thing. Absolutely. Yes. There's nothing shameful about being alive, about feeling connected, about craving touch or even just warmth. If anything, it's a sign that your spirit is still vibrant. But I understand why they ask. We live in a society that treats aging like a shutdown button for intimacy. Somewhere along the way, we've absorbed the myth that sexual activity is for the young, that past a certain birthday, you should quietly retire not just from your job, but from the joy of human closeness. I believed it too. Once. In my early career, I never spoke to patients about sex after 60. It wasn't in the textbooks. The unspoken rule was, don't ask, don't tell. But then I met someone who completely rewired how I thought about aging. His name was George Thompson. He walked into my clinic for a routine prostate check, and at first glance, I assumed he was in his late 60s. Turned out he was 83. His blood pressure was pristine, his labs were textbook perfect, and his posture straighter than mine. I asked him his secret, expecting something like green juice or yoga. He smiled and said, "My wife and I, we still make love twice a week. Been doing that since Nixon was president." I chuckled, but it made me think. So I started asking my older patients more questions. I paid closer attention to their overall health, their labs, their moods, and a clear pattern emerged. Those who stayed sexually active, whether with a partner or through solo intimacy, consistently showed better health indicators. Not just in one area, across the board. Their hearts were stronger, their moods more stable, their sleep deeper, their immune systems more resilient. This wasn't anecdotal. It was biology. Still, it took me time to shed my own discomfort. I grew up in an era where sex was taboo, let alone senior sexuality. But science doesn't lie. Research from across the globe began to pour in, showing that regular sexual activity in older adults reduced the risk of cardiovascular disease, bolstered the immune system, supported hormonal balance, improved sleep, and even slowed cognitive decline. All of this led me to a personal reckoning at the age of 65. I had always been moderately active, but I realized I had let my own intimacy slip into the background, buried under work, age, and assumptions. So I had a long conversation with my wife. We agreed to make this part of our life a priority, again not just for closeness, but for health. The results were transformative. Not only did we feel younger in our bodies, but in our connection as well. You see, aging doesn't mean the end of your identity as a sensual being. On the contrary, the older you get, the more you deserve the full range of human experience, including touch, desire, and pleasure. Unfortunately, many older adults abandon this part of themselves out of fear of judgment, fear of ridicule, or simply because no one ever told them it was okay to continue. One of my patients, Maria Rodriguez, lost her husband at 58. For 10 years, she didn't let herself feel anything. She thought intimacy was behind her. When she came to me for osteoporosis, I gently brought up the connection between hormones, bone density, and sexual activity. At first, she laughed it off. Then, a few months later, she returned with tears in her eyes, telling me she had started exploring her body again. A year later, her scans showed a noticeable improvement in bone mass. She said, "It wasn't just about health. It was about reclaiming myself." So I ask you, whoever you are, reading or listening right now, have you quietly shut down a part of yourself just because of the candles on your last birthday cake? Do you find yourself reminiscing about intimacy like it was a chapter that closed long ago? Or maybe you never thought it mattered that much. But it does. Your body is still yours. Your needs are still valid. And the benefits are not just emotional or relational, they are deeply physical. This isn't about being provocative, it's about being honest, and about giving yourself permission to live fully at every stage. In this series, I want to talk openly, without shame, about how intimacy, including solo practices, can radically transform your health after 60. I'll walk you through the 5 most important health domains affected by sexual activity: your heart, your pelvic health, your immune system, your sleep and mood, and finally, your memory. I'll show you the research. I'll share real patient stories. And I'll invite you to rethink what aging really means. Not decline, but adaptation. Not loss, but evolution. If you're ready, let's begin. When most people think about ways to protect their heart in later years, they think of medication, diet changes, maybe brisk walks around the block. Rarely does anyone consider intimacy as part of that equation. But here's the truth that surprised even me. After decades in medicine, regular sexual activity, whether shared with a partner or through self-touch, has a measurable and profound effect on cardiovascular health in people over 60. This isn't feel-good folklore. This is physiology, confirmed by studies from institutions like the American Heart Association and leading global research centers. Your heart is a muscle, and like any other muscle, it responds to stimulation, circulation, and engagement. Sexual activity offers all of these, often in a more enjoyable form than a treadmill. Let me explain it clearly. During sexual activity, your heart rate increases gradually, your blood vessels dilate, and oxygen-rich blood flows more freely throughout your body. That includes your brain, your organs, your limbs, and yes, your heart itself. It's very similar to moderate aerobic exercise. The breathing deepens, muscles contract rhythmically, endorphins are released, and for many older adults, it is one of the few physical activities that engages both body and mind with such full attention. In fact, studies have shown that older adults who engage in sexual activity more than twice a week see a reduction in heart attacks and strokes by more than a quarter. Let that sink in. That's not just comfort. That's prevention. You don't need to run marathons or take fancy supplements to see improvements in your blood pressure or circulation. One of my patients, David Lee, 71, was taking daily medication for hypertension. After our consultation, he and his wife agreed to make intimacy a priority again. 6 months later, his blood pressure had stabilized to the point that his doctor reduced his medication by half. He told me, "At first, I thought this would be a chore, but now it's our favorite part of the week." It's no longer just about managing a condition, it's about joy, connection, and surprisingly, a healthier heart. But what about those who live alone? This is where I want to be especially clear. Self-pleasure is not a second-class option. It carries similar benefits for cardiovascular health. During solo intimacy, the heart still pumps faster, blood vessels still expand, hormones still activate, and perhaps most importantly, it keeps the body attuned to pleasure, to presence, to vitality. One patient, Richard Johnson, 78, came to see me after a mild cardiac scare. He didn't have a partner, and he felt embarrassed to talk about sexual health at his age. But after hearing me speak at a local wellness seminar, he decided to try regular solo intimacy twice a week. 3 months later, his blood pressure dropped, his cholesterol numbers improved, and his overall energy returned. He said, "I never thought touching myself could be medical advice, but now, I think it saved me." Now, of course, I must include a note of caution. If you have a history of heart disease, angina, or previous cardiac surgeries, consult your doctor before engaging in any new physical activity, including sex. This isn't about pushing beyond your limits. It's about honoring your body and finding the rhythm that's right for you. For some couples who haven't been intimate in years, the thought of jumping back in can be intimidating. That's okay. Start slowly. Begin with closeness, hand-holding, gentle conversations, skin-to-skin contact. Let trust build again. Let the body remember how it feels to be cared for. For those experiencing physical challenges, vaginal dryness, erectile difficulties, fatigue, know that there are safe, effective treatments available. Don't let embarrassment stop you from asking. Modern medicine offers solutions tailored to your age and comfort. And more importantly, the act of asking is an act of self-respect. Your health, including your heart health, is worth protecting with every tool available. And yes, intimacy is one of those tools. So, next time you think about heart health, don't just picture blood pressure cuffs and low-sodium meals. Think about laughter in the bedroom. Think about slow Sunday mornings curled up with someone you trust. Or peaceful evenings when you give yourself permission to feel, to breathe, to be fully alive. Your heart responds to more than medication. It responds to joy, to warmth, to rhythm. Don't deny it that chance. One of the most personal and often frustrating changes that come with age is the gradual loss of control over our pelvic functions, urinary incontinence. That phrase alone can cause embarrassment and shame, especially for those who have spent a lifetime being independent and dignified. Suddenly, there's a sense of helplessness. You find yourself planning outings around bathroom access. Maybe you avoid long drives or refuse to join social events. I know this struggle intimately because I've had to sit across from many women and men who whispered their concerns with downcast eyes, thinking this issue meant their best days were behind them. But what if I told you that the solution might lie in something far more natural than medication or surgery? What if I told you that regular sexual activity, and even self-pleasure, could restore strength to the very muscles responsible for your control? Let's talk plainly. Your pelvic floor muscles are like a hammock, supporting vital organs like the bladder, uterus, and rectum. With age, those muscles weaken. For women, childbirth accelerates this process. For men, prostate changes add to the pressure. But here's the powerful truth. Every time you engage in sexual activity that leads to climax, whether with a partner or alone, those muscles contract and release rhythmically. That natural contraction is the very same principle behind pelvic floor therapy. In essence, every healthy orgasm is a workout for your pelvic stability. And when you understand that, the embarrassment begins to melt away, replaced by empowerment. I'll share with you the story of Susan Williams, a 73-year-old retired teacher from Miami. She came to me after struggling with urinary incontinence for over a decade. Her confidence had eroded. She stayed home most days, worried about leaking, but she wasn't ready to give up. After we talked, she and her partner began reintroducing intimacy gently. Within 3 months, she noticed she could leave the house without the thick pads she used to rely on. She told me, "I walked through a grocery store for an hour and didn't worry once. It was the first time I felt free in years." Now let me introduce you to Elizabeth Garcia, 70 years old, widowed, living alone. She was skeptical when I suggested self-pleasure combined with daily Kegel exercises. She laughed and said, "At my age, doctor? Really?" But she gave it a try. 4 months later, she was traveling with her friends without fear. Her words stayed with me. She said, "I thought I was too old to care about my body. Turns out my body still cares about me." So what are Kegel exercises, and how do they fit into this? It's simple. Tighten the muscles you'd use to stop urinating midstream. Hold for 5 seconds. Release. Repeat 10 times. Do 3 sets a day. Combine this with regular intimacy, and you have a natural, drug-free way to rebuild the strength that time tried to take away. And you don't have to be in a relationship to benefit. Self-touch, when approached with care and without shame, can provide the same restorative effects. It's about reconnecting with your body, about honoring it, and about letting go of the old belief that aging equals decline. But as always, I offer this with caution and care. If you've had recent pelvic surgery, severe pain, or infections, consult your doctor before resuming any sexual activity. Safety and comfort come first. And if you feel uncertain or embarrassed, remember this: your dignity does not disappear with age. You have the right to feel whole, to feel strong, to live without constantly scanning the room for the nearest restroom. So many of us were taught to ignore this part of ourselves, especially as we grow older. We treat sexual health as optional, a luxury reserved for the young. But I have seen firsthand the profound transformation that comes when an older adult decides to reclaim their body. To say, I deserve to feel good. I deserve to be in control. There's nothing shameful about wanting that. There's something deeply human about it. Don't let silence rob you of solutions. Speak up. Try the practices. Talk to someone you trust. And remember, your pelvic health is not just about inconvenience. It's about freedom. The freedom to laugh without leaking, to travel without worry, to move through your life without carrying the quiet burden of embarrassment. You deserve that freedom. And you can get there one step, one breath, one honest moment at a time. One of the most misunderstood realities of aging is the gradual weakening of the immune system. You may notice it when colds linger longer than they used to, or when cuts take extra days to heal. Many seniors accept this as inevitable. But what if I told you there was a natural way to enhance your body's defense system, one that doesn't come in a bottle or a clinic, but is already within your grasp? The answer lies in something far too often overlooked: your capacity for intimacy. Yes, even in your 60s and beyond, both partnered intimacy and self-touch activate biological responses that can significantly boost your immune function and reduce chronic pain. Let's start with the science. Studies from reputable institutions in the United States and Europe have shown that older adults who engage in sexual activity on a regular basis have higher levels of immunoglobulin A, a key antibody that acts as the body's first line of defense. What's even more fascinating is that this effect is not dependent on whether intimacy is shared or solo. The same immune-boosting chemicals are released during self-pleasure. Hormones like oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin flood the bloodstream during and after climax, each playing a unique role in modulating immune responses, reducing inflammation, and helping your body fight off infections more effectively. Now, let me tell you about Charles Brown, a 69-year-old gentleman from Dallas who had been living with rheumatoid arthritis for nearly a decade. His mornings were stiff. His nights were restless. He leaned heavily on prescription painkillers. When I first mentioned sexual activity as part of a pain management strategy, he looked at me like I had lost my mind, but he gave it a chance. He and his wife committed to weekly intimacy, not out of obligation, but as a shared wellness routine. After several months, he returned to my clinic with tears in his eyes and said, "Doc, my mornings are different. I wake up and I move. I'm still sore sometimes, but I don't reach for the bottle first thing anymore." Pain is more than a physical sensation. It's a thief that steals joy, sleep, and often hope. But the body has its own built-in pharmacy. Every time you experience pleasure through healthy sexual activity, your brain releases endorphins, natural painkillers that work faster than over-the-counter drugs. These hormones reduce the perception of pain while increasing feelings of well-being. This dual effect is crucial for those living with chronic conditions like arthritis, back pain, or even neuropathy. Consider Carol White, a 74-year-old widow living in Denver. Chronic back pain had been her shadow for years. She tried everything: physical therapy, medications, alternative treatments. Nothing brought sustained relief. After a gentle conversation, she agreed to try self-pleasure, just twice a week. 2 months in, she told me something remarkable. "I can sleep through the night again. I wake up feeling like I can live. It's strange to say, but touching myself gave me my life back. This isn't magic. It's medicine. A kind that comes from within. Sexual activity, when practiced mindfully and regularly, doesn't just enhance intimacy or pleasure. It becomes a tool for healing, a natural stimulant for your immune cells, a release valve for stress-induced inflammation, and a powerful agent for restoring your body's rhythm. Now, it's important to add that moderation matters. For those taking immunosuppressants or living with autoimmune disorders, consult your doctor about safe frequency and intensity. Sexual activity should never feel forced or exhausting. It should nourish, not deplete. Your body knows the difference, and when you listen closely, it will tell you what it needs. So many of us have been taught to treat health as something external. Pills, procedures, protocols. But some of the most profound healing begins with permission to feel, to connect, to touch, to be touched. Your immune system doesn't just react to threats. It responds to love, to safety, to the quiet message that says, I matter. I'm still here. I'm worth taking care of. You don't have to wait for a prescription to start healing. Sometimes the most powerful medicine is already inside you, waiting for you to remember what it feels like to be alive. And if you're ready, just know you're not alone. Thousands of older adults are rediscovering this truth. Not because they're chasing youth, but because they're choosing health on their own terms. Sleep. It seems so simple when we're young, but as we age, it becomes one of the most elusive elements of health. Many of my patients in their 60s and 70s come to me not just for physical ailments, but for something even more frustrating: the inability to fall asleep, or worse, to stay asleep. They tell me about restless nights, about waking up in the middle of the night with thoughts racing, or needing pills just to get a few hours of rest. And what they often don't realize is that their lack of sleep isn't just making them tired. It's eroding their health, their memory, their mood. But here's the part that surprises most of them: one of the most natural remedies for better sleep, stronger mood, and reduced anxiety is regular sexual activity, even when practiced alone. You see, every time we experience healthy sexual stimulation, our bodies release a symphony of hormones that restore emotional balance. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, floods our system, creating a deep sense of trust and calm. Serotonin and dopamine rise, boosting our mood and easing symptoms of depression. And after climax, our brains release prolactin, a hormone closely tied to deep restorative sleep. That hormonal cascade is no accident. It's nature's way of helping the body reset, heal, and enter a state of peace. Angela Smith, a 77-year-old retired nurse from Chicago, is someone I'll never forget. She had been relying on sleeping pills for more than 4 decades. Every night, a pill. Every morning, grogginess. She was skeptical when I suggested that reconnecting intimately with her husband might help. But after a few weeks of trying, she returned with a smile. For the first time in 40 years, she had slept 7 hours straight, no pills. Her eyes were brighter, her posture lighter. She told me, "I forgot what it felt like to wake up refreshed. I feel like myself again." And for those without a partner, I say this again with the utmost respect: self-pleasure holds the same benefits. Your body doesn't discriminate. The same chemicals are released. The same nervous system resets. Michael Davis, 81, had been battling severe insomnia since the loss of his wife. He didn't feel comfortable dating again, but he missed the emotional calm that came with connection. After we spoke, he began a gentle evening ritual of self-touch. Soft lighting, calming music. Time set aside with no shame. 3 weeks later, he told me, "I no longer fear bedtime. I sleep deeply. I feel at peace." Sleep and emotional health are deeply connected. When we're deprived of rest, the body produces more cortisol, the stress hormone that accelerates aging, raises blood pressure, and weakens the immune system. That's why so many older adults find themselves stuck in a vicious cycle. Poor sleep leads to stress. Stress worsens health, and declining health ruins sleep. Sexual activity can interrupt that cycle. It's not just a release, it's a rebalancing. A natural sedative, a gentle reset for both the brain and body. Of course, I always encourage creating the right environment. Intimacy, whether shared or solo, should not be rushed. Dim the lights. Put on music that calms you. Focus on touch, breath, presence. Afterward, allow yourself to rest fully. No screens, no stressors. Let the body do what it was designed to do, heal through rest. And if you or someone you love is facing clinical depression or severe anxiety, sexual activity alone may not be enough. In those cases, please seek out therapy and medical support. But don't underestimate what intimacy can begin to unlock. So I ask you, are you sleeping well these days? Or are you carrying the invisible weight of stress, fear, or loneliness into bed each night? Have you given up on the idea that peace could be part of your routine again? Because it can. And not from a bottle, but from within you. Your body holds rhythms that, when honored, reward you with calm, clarity, and deep sleep. You don't need to be young. You just need to be willing. To care for yourself in this way is not indulgence. It is medicine. And it may be the most powerful gift you give your body as it grows older. Memory is one of the most sacred parts of our identity. It holds our names, our stories, the faces we love, the places we've been. And as we age, many of us begin to notice small slips of forgotten appointment, a misplaced name, the subtle fear that perhaps something deeper is shifting. The idea of losing our memory is one of the greatest fears of aging, and rightfully so. Dementia and Alzheimer's disease rob not just the mind, but the relationships, the independence, the very essence of a person. But what if one of the keys to preserving cognitive function was something far more personal, something most of us never thought to connect our intimacy? Scientific studies from institutions like the University of Melbourne and Oxford have revealed a remarkable link between sexual activity and brain health. These studies show that older adults who maintain regular sexual activity, whether with a partner or through self-pleasure, have better memory retention, higher cognitive performance, and even slower decline in neural function. How does this happen? The answer lies in brain chemistry. During intimacy, blood flow to the brain increases. Key regions involved in memory, problem-solving, and emotional regulation become activated. Hormones, like dopamine, not only create pleasure, but stimulate neural pathways. Nerve growth factors increase, helping the brain form new connections, build resilience, and protect against degenerative decline. And once again, this benefit is not dependent on having a partner. Solo intimacy activates many of the same brain regions and hormonal patterns. It keeps your brain engaged, your nervous system responsive, your sense of self intact. Jack Wilson, 81, from Atlanta, is one of those stories that stays with me. He came in with early signs of memory decline. His wife, 73, noticed he was repeating questions and losing track of conversations. They decided together to explore intimacy again, gently, and with purpose. A year later, his memory tests had stabilized. He told me, "I don't just remember better. I feel more present, like I'm back in the room." Another woman, Patricia Anderson, 76, lived alone and had been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. After a conversation with me, she began a weekly routine of self-pleasure combined with reading and light mental exercises. A year later, her doctors were astonished by the improvement. She told me, "I started doing it because I was afraid of fading away, but it made me feel alive. Like my mind was reaching again, not retreating." This isn't about trying to be young again. It's about honoring the brain's incredible ability to adapt, even late in life. We now understand that intimacy activates something called cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to compensate for damage, to create alternate pathways, to stay functional longer even in the face of age-related challenges. And just as importantly, the emotional effects of intimacy feeling wanted, connected, even just safe in your own skin play a critical role in brain health. Depression, isolation, and anxiety are known accelerators of cognitive decline. Intimacy pushes back against all of those. It reminds you that you are still here, still worthy of joy, still part of something living. So let me leave you with this. Over the course of this conversation, we've talked about your heart, your muscles, your immune system, your sleep, and now your mind. And in every case, the evidence points to the same simple truth: intimacy is not a luxury. It is not shameful. It is not the exclusive domain of youth. It is a vital part of human health, no matter your age. I know you may have doubts. Maybe you haven't thought about this in years. Maybe you carry trauma, or fear, or pain. Maybe you lost someone you loved. Or maybe you just never knew this part of yourself was worth tending to. But I promise you this, it's not too late. It is never too late to reconnect with your body, to rebuild your health, to rediscover joy. And whether that means reaching for your partner's hand or reaching inward in solitude, the act of caring for yourself in this way is a radical act of healing. You deserve to live every year with dignity, with energy, with presence. Your age is not your limit. It is your proof of how much you've endured and how much more life you still hold. So start the conversation. With your partner, with your doctor, with yourself. Let go of the myths. Embrace the facts. And above all, remember this: your body is not a burden. It is a bridge. A bridge back to vitality, to connection, to the person you've always been, waiting quietly for permission to feel again.